Okay, so I think should we start? Yes, everybody ready? So
ready.
First, yes. So thank you everyone for joining us again for this afternoon, the beginning of this afternoon session, which will be on winemaking. And we're gonna have a presentation by Sierra Eaton to start from Vintrace. Sierra, please take it away.
Hello. Okay, wait, are we starting with the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Please.
Here goes the video.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
All right.
We'll start there and then I'll talk. Hello, everybody. My name is Sierra Eaton, and I'm located in Sonoma County, California. I'm an accountant in Vintrace. We are very excited for the opportunity to sponsor this session led by Belinda Kemp. About Vintrace. Vintrace is a cloud-based software for managing winery production operations, lab analysis, inventory, and costs. We want to make tracking your wine easier and allow you to spend less time in front of your computer and more time actually making your wine. Vintrace was founded in 2007 and has been used in 26 harvests. We have over 595 winery customers and thousands of users worldwide. We look forward to working with more Canadian wineries. If you go and visit the Vintrace booth, you can find a client story from Colio Estate Wines. The head winemaker, Allison, discusses how compliance was made faster and easier by installing Vintrace. Her team was able to spend half as much time on the annual LCBO audit and VQA submissions. I would love to show you Vintrace's capabilities from grape to bottle. I can demonstrate how to bring in fruit, inoculate wine, manage your VQA bricks, and more. And to go along with Belinda's session today on sparkling wine, Vintrace has capabilities to perform all of the functions necessary for sparkling wine and tracks each stage of tirage, riddling, and disgorging. Please reach out to me here or at the Vintrace booth and we can book a demo.
Thank you, Sierra. Do you have any questions or anybody regarding Vintrace or the features?
And we do have a little video to share as well. Do you have that one too?
It should be on the email. Yes, we should have the link. Dora, please.
Let me check. I thought I only saw that one video, but hold on.
It's the link that was in the. It's a 2-minute video.
Well, in the meantime, yeah, I had pre-recorded because I do have pretty bad internet, and that was just in case my internet didn't work today. So luckily it's working and I'm here. Yeah, so if anyone does want to book a demo with me, please reach out to me and we can do group demos or solo demos, whatever you want. We do also have a trial version of one of the softwares called Boutique. Please keep in mind if you do sign up for that, that's not the full version. So we do have multiple options. We are available on both app and desktop. For the app, it does work on Android or iOS. Yeah, so basically Vintrace, we track all of your winery functions, and we have worked with Canadian wineries to focus in on the VQA requirements. So that client story from Colio Estate Wines is pretty cool because she does discuss how it has helped her save time, including with the VQA requirements. And I can show you all that in a demo.
Okay.
I have that link, so I'll run that too.
Perfect.
And just for the audience, I am going to arrange with Sierra a time to do a group member demo session. So hold on a second.
Harvest is hard work with no time to spare. With the Vintrace app, plan and track so you can keep focus on your crush. You can view vineyard data, enter fruit weights, process fruit quickly and easily, calculate addition rates, track ferment activity, and record lab results, all from your smartphone using the powerful Vintrace app. Get all your barrels labeled and tracked so they're easy to find and less likely to go into the wrong blend. Manage your tanks and barrels with our simple QR code system. Just scan the code using the app. You can even place handy QR code labels on row posts to simplify picking schedules. Do you have spreadsheets and paper all over the place? Never fall behind on your record keeping again. Make additions, record ferments, and capture tasting notes right there from your phone as they happen. No more running back to your desk. It's all right there in the cloud in real time. Vintrace gives you a dashboard full of business health insights. Use real data to take control before issues become costly problems. View key information on your customized dashboard so you can see how your business is tracking compared to a previous vintage or period. Learn and improve your business year on year. Stay ahead of compliance requirements with quick and easy reports generated in just a few clicks. Vintrace keeps you in control when it matters most. Let's hear what Vintrace customers have to say.
Without Vintrace, I wouldn't have as much time to be out on the floor actually making one.
Vintrace is a lifesaver.
Without Vintrace, the brass would be at a standstill.
Ready to take control of your business and get hours back every week? Then let's get started with a free trial today. Visit vintrace.com.
There you
Great,
go.
thank you. Thank you for
Sierra.
playing that.
Sierra, I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah.
Does let me stop that. Does Vintrace support offline? For example, if I'm gathering information or putting in inputs and I'm in the cellar where I don't have internet access, does it support offline?
Good question. At this point, it does not. I know that is something multiple people have asked about, so we've definitely told our dev team. There are a couple things you can do, such as if you do connect and then you walk into your cellar and scan your scan the barcode on the barrel, you can bring that up. So there's a couple things, but for the most part, it is connected to the cloud. Yeah, so we definitely bring that up. One thing that's pretty cool about Vintrace is we do take customer feedback and actually review it every 2 weeks to make sure that our improvements are actually what customers want. So that's something we've been talking about. So hopefully I'll have a different answer for you.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. So now we'll have a little message from our scholarship sponsors. Scholarships are, for the PECWA member kids, and we're really thankful that we'd be able to sustain what we've started, right, through education. Okay, so Stuart, video, please.
Here we go.
Welcome everyone to the AO virtual trade show booth. And thank you for making us part of your PECWA experience, albeit a bit different this year, and hope you're enjoying the conference so far. As a longtime supplier to the Chapter County beverage community, many of you are familiar with what our company has to offer. So we will mainly focus on what's new at AOW. For the ones who are new to our company, in a nutshell, we supply everything from seed to bottle for wineries, cideries, microdistilleries, non-alcoholic beverage, and food. Our product portfolio ranges from innovative technology products to processing and packaging equipment to a wide variety of closures, custom or readily available from stock. We meet you in the handout file available in the app for download. We have a 20,000 square foot warehouse chocolate delivery. And don't forget, we offer a complimentary contactless delivery service to the county monthly from March to November. You here, members of our team briefly touching on some new products and development. Our Oenology products range from award-winning yeasts, yeast nutrients, purifying enzymes, binding agents, enhancing tannins, and stabilizing agents. Let me highlight some successful Oenology products for you. Here we have the PAO2 yeast, which is extremely popular among cider makers. It helps create aromatic fine colors ciders. This tea has 7 for extraordinary Rieslings and the Pro 6 for Charnock tank cider and high quality single style wines. Any of our yeast nutrients and aids are available in easy to use format, free of dust, and so safe for handling and complete dispersion into the cup. We have the Ultra C4 skin enzyme, which increases yield, clarification, and filterability by eliminating effective aging. We have beautiful tannins for reds, rosés, and whites, whether it be tannins during the aging process to enhance aroma and to add structure, to bottling tannins to remove effective molecules that will mask and fresh expression. The very powerful and directive combination for reviving wines is to use our top 10 AR with either Infinity Fruity White or red or white wines. We have liquid gelatin, which in combination with silica solubility offers rapid clarification and yield sentiment. We have carbon available in mini juice format, both decolorizing and deodorizing. And the stabilizing agents are available from stock, such as citric acid, potassium sorbate, bicarbonate, and methylsulfite. As well, we have PPP in mini tube format also. I'll now pass it over to Brandon Erickson, our very own YouTube star, to talk a little bit about our equipment.
Continuing along the production process, the need for equipment arises. Here at Wilson, we have most of the equipment that you will need. For transferring, we have all types of hoses available, capable of handling all products, including high alcohol percentages, with the option for internally crimped ends for high pressure application. All varieties of pumps to push through your new hoses from 1 inch to 2.5 inch tri-type fitting, with variable speed, reversible, and many other options are available. Filtering, we can offer cartridge filters tailored to your specific product, including PS wine and PS beer, as well as housings varying in size. Our new bag filter housings are great for filtering out the larger particulate matter. This low-cost alternative will help reduce the strain on your downstream filtering options. A.O. Wilson now offers service for rental should you plate and frame filters and media, as well as lenticular housings and modules are also available. After you have filtered your product, it's time to bottle. With Enomasters, Enomatics, gravity fillers, counter pressure fillers, you will have the option best suited to your operation and product. The next step is to apply your closure and tamper with seal. And we will have the equipment to apply your cork, crown, screw cap, and everything in between. The last step is a process new percent. The requirement for anyone circulating the deals together. A lot/big coat must be applied to any package, can, bottle, box, or pouch for traceability purposes. We now offer just the machine you need to accomplish that, our rate differential. This unit with a tablet-style controller and print head with ink cartridges for easy reloading. This unit allows the customer to apply a wide variety of information to the printing surface and many options to customize the print and tailor to suit your needs. Personalization options are available for plain packages. This is a great low-cost and versatile solution to a new requirement most producers have to face. Please make sure to take a look at our YouTube channel for all our product tutorials and
Your final closure. It's an important decision in the packaging process. We have a solution for every vision and budget. Let's start with corks. We have built a strong and long-lasting partnership with Amber Cork. We offer anything from all natural, twin top, champagne, and micro long-range corks. In a quest to eradicate TCA, Amber
CO2 is passed through various liquids and gas supercritical states. The quartz elastic, physical, mechanical features all remain intact. One could say that TCA is never seen in the past. Of course, all our quartz are available for custom branding. Seal is another exciting luxury exposure we offer. Seal presents a premium quality product, making your brand product unforgettable. Seal offers amazing customization and design options, preserving the taste and aroma of your product. It's also 100% recyclable, sourced from natural materials. It is important to find a compatible bottle to fit your Seal closure. Wilson also offers synthetic tea-work stoppers in a variety of different finishes and sizes to fit your bottle. Also fully customizable with your branding and print or laser etching. You can even customize metals, and there, of course, are endless possibilities. Of course, you will need a temper evident seal to place on top of your quartz or tea works. We have a wide variety of capsules from stock to choose from. For your sparkling product, you will need a 4-post wire with a hood on top. As always, all of our PCs, polylamps, and tin capsules are fully customizable. If you wish to go for an all-in-one solution, we offer aluminum stir caps as well as crown caps for your sparkling wine, beer, or cider. Thank you for joining us today. We'd like to wish everyone the very best in this challenging time. Keep safe, and we look forward to seeing everyone next year in person.
Stay safe.
Right, thank you, Anne-Marie and Graham. So I was, if anybody has questions, if anybody has questions, Graham is available right here. So if you wanted to type in a question, or if you wanted to just ask a question, just unmute yourself and please do ask. Anybody?
Well done on the whole virtual
it's,
booth video.
I know, it is
that was our virtual booth.
It felt like I was there.
Yes. And that only took a few, you just put that together in a day, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a really nice summary of what you have available to us, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If
So,
anybody has a question, if they could send an email or
yes, they can definitely
that's
do
fine.
that. And I mean, and you have your deliveries to the county and everything planned, so you'll be able to next week, and there you go. Thank you, Graham. Yes. So we're gonna go over to Belinda, who's gonna be talking to us about sparkling wine this time. A little bit more research, a little bit more science. So we're really looking forward to her talk. Thank you, Belinda, and please take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm going to.
Well, that's all right. Take your time.
Yeah.
There's no. Yeah.
Okay. So I was asked to talk about sparkling wine, and we've been doing a lot of research on yeast, nutrients, and also sugar in sparkling wine. I seem to be echoing from somewhere. I don't know why. It didn't happen earlier, but anyway. So let's get moving with this. The first thing I'm going to mention is we looked at aging base wine on yeast lees versus the same juice that was fermented, but then bottled in PETNAT. We did drop the actual pressure so that high pressure wasn't a big variable within it. So 30 months of aging base wines on lees in 2 different environments. So that's pretty cool stuff I'm going to show you as well. I'm going to talk really briefly about yeast considerations, which you know, but also about some of our findings from nutrient additions and the types of products available. There's also going to be talk about, you know, the whole yan and nitrogen in the juice, and also the versus the nitrogen nutrients additions in the second fermentation, and show you a little bit of information about the different types of sugars you can add into the dosage and how that affects the chemistry, the flavor development, and the aging of the wines after disgorging. So let's start with the little PEGNAT study. This was started in 2018 from the Chardonnay donated from Trias. We had 120 litres of Chardonnay juice and split it up into 4 40 litres, which I've fermented. And then when we got to just 4 grams per litre, we bottled it. Now it was a really low really low level of sugar, because as I said, I didn't want to make high pressure an issue, because the point was to look at the chemistry of how the different wines, well, it's the same wine basically, but how the chemistry changed if you age base wine unstirred for a long period of time. Now, we tend to sort of age for about 6 months, and that was my intention, except COVID hit and I completely forgot about it. So it's the longest aged base wine, reserve wine, I guess you'd call it, in Ontario at the moment by accident, but it's also given us some interesting results. So the first thing, I've got the juice analysis data there, and you can see a standard sparkling wine juice chemistry. The Brix was 16.9 and 4.2 on the malic. We didn't do mallow on it. As I said, we bottled the PEGNAT at 4 grams per litre of sugar. We stored it at 14 to 15 degrees centigrade in darkness for 30 months. And this became quite interesting. I wanted to do the yeast cell count when we bottled the PEGNAT, so that we could see what the yeast, the viable and total cell count was. And straight away you see there's a difference between replicate wines, because it's all sort of done, each one was done in triplicate. And of course that's going to give you bottle variation between the reps, but it's also going to mean that you're going to have different viable cells and total cells in every bottle. So you've got replica variation, and then we're going to have bottle variation as well, which is standard in PEGNAT. We did inoculate with the IOC 2007 yeast instead of doing a natural one, because we wanted to make sure that we had that Saccharomyces sparkling wine yeast inside the bottles and the base wines, make sure it finished it. And then it basically aged on lees with whatever else other yeast, non-Saccharomyces yeast were there as well, unstirred. So we found that after 30 months, actually the chemistry changed quite a lot in certain things. So the main significant differences was, well, we hit 1 bar pressure in the bottle, which was what I wanted to do, so that's fine. But the pH differences were pretty big. But just by storing the wine in different containers, the malic acid changes differed. The amount of browning from oxidation differed. The residual sugar amounts and the total SO2, that unfortunately was because we had to add some, even though nothing had it, you know, the base wine on lees didn't have any headspace, but we still needed to top up a little bit. So what's really interesting, first of all, here is on the top on the left is obviously the total SO2, which we have to take into account. And then the graph on the right at the top is the degree of browning. So even though the PEGNAT had a lot less, well, it had a lot less total SO2, nothing had any free SO2 in it at all. And therefore, obviously, it had a higher degree of browning. So the oxidation ability of the PEGNAT was much higher than us holding the base wine back, most likely because we had to add a bit of SO2. The pH is really interesting though. If you remember that this is logarithmic, so look at the base wine on lees, really low, sitting around 2.9-ish, 2.95. And the PEGNAT, that pH did shoot up. And now you're looking at 3.2. So the pH difference and probably even, you know, left longer would be, well, it is significant. And then finally, the malic acid in both after long lees aging on primary yeast lees actually both increased. And that's because some yeasts, including IOC 2007, can release malic acid during aging. So that has implications. This came about as well because some winemakers at Fizz Club in Niagara were asking me and talking to me about, we were discussing the ability of aging base wine on primary lees in a tank for a longer period of time, for a year or two, instead of bottle, instead of doing the long lees aging on the bottle. Would it cut back economically on costs and finances and that sort of thing? And I think the first thing to say is it's not as simple as volume, you know, the ratio of lees to volume, etc., and that actually different aging processes happen in different vessels. So that was a quick summary. As I said, we did inoculate. That was done on purpose instead of doing a PETNA with the natural ferment. So it was in contact with a whole bunch of other yeast lees that was in there. It was low pressure. We weren't going like for like. We were trying to be more like to like as much as possible. So we didn't lift up the pressure. But I have to say, the PETNA's phenomenal. And actually what we did find when we inoculated it was its ability to age and calm down and be much more approachable with less gushing and just a really lovely creamy flavor that if I was making PETNA, I would actually think about playing around a little bit more with that. Sadly, we didn't use barrels or tanks simply because I don't have 20-litre tanks and I don't see the need to buy them. They're so small. So we still have a load of analysis to do. We're looking at lactic glycerol, dissolved oxygen, and whether there's a difference in the release of amino acids that contribute to flavor development. And the particular marker that I've got a bit of a passion for now is 5-HMF, which is the caramel flavor that comes along with aging. And it's a really good marker to be able to see how different wines age. And we do that in our lab on a spectro method we've developed. So we'll be having a look at that. And we'll be tasting the base wines and the PETNA wines in Fizz Club whenever we next actually have it. But they're all stored safely, ready for us to do that. So another study we're doing with the Canadian Grapevine Network certification, moving on to the next one, is looking at the sour rot and the ability of the Brock CN1 yeast to actually decrease acetic acid. There are a number of sparkling wine yeasts that decrease acetic acid should you have to pick with sour rot in it 1 year. You know, obviously we want to avoid them. By field sorting or winery sorting. But if in a bad year we have to, then that was the point of this study. So we did this with still wine and with sparkling base wine. The second fermentation was with EC1118, but we were, for all of them, but for the primary ferment, it was EC1118 versus CN1. We handpicked them, we did cold press them. The CN1 yeast is currently in frozen form, so it has to be built up. So we built up both yeasts, so they weren't actively dry yeast. And one lot's being, the 2020 is being bottled in May at Fielding Estate Winery, and the 2019 is being disgorged in August because that was bottled. So both will have 12 months on lees. The first thing we found, now CN1 yeast that was discovered in Debbie's lab, the boss at Covey, I'll call her. Well, she is my boss actually, but what we did find was, of course, ethyl acetate comes from acetic acid, and then it's not at dangerous levels in this, even at these different levels, probably because we settled the juice with enzymes and cold settled it. So that probably helped with the amount of acetic as well and ethyl acetate left. But you can see straight away that the EC1118 8 had much higher levels of ethyl acetate compared to CN1. And that's because this CN1 yeast actually consumes acetic acid. So Debbie's also worked with it on things like ice wine, trying to think of what, red wine, Passimento wines, all sorts of things like that. And this has been consistent. There's a significant difference between the yeast's ability to consume acetic acid, and there's always been a significant difference with regards to acetic and ethyl acetate. So there's still more work to do, because obviously there always is. Neither of those amounts of acetic acid are too close to well, EC218 is getting a bit closer to the level that it's perceived at. I know we've got permitted levels of acetic acid in Ontario wines under VQA, but I suspect that 1.3 is probably more to do with the ice wine side. But when you can start noticing it at the threshold level for noticing it, I should say, is 0.8. And of course, ethyl acetate was still lower than desired limits. But the problem with ethyl acetate is people can smell it early on. So the less we have, the better. So we're also looking at the 2 honey compounds. This is really interesting because these 2 honey compounds, phenylacetic acid in particular, starts increasing in sour rot grapes before acetic acid even arrives on the block, before you can smell or see acetic acid. So what we're also looking at is whether that could be better as a biomarker for us in Ontario, sorry, not just Niagara, but also through following it and monitoring it, can we know when to spray before acetic acid turns up into it. So the yeast converts phenylacetic acid into its nicer counterpart, its acetate, and separately they're okay. But when there's these 2 compounds at specific levels each, then you end up with a really dusty, moldy honey flavor. It's the weirdest thing. And DAP increases that flavor in sour rot wines using DAP, and also so does just bottle aging in general with regards to sparkling. So that's why we're keeping an eye on those compounds, and also acetic and ethyl acetate. Take a breath. Now, the next study I wanted to just bring to mind was this nutrition issue for second fermentation as well. And this is our protocol we always use in the lab, the Covey one, which is based on the one that we got from IOC, because the yeast we use is predominantly the IOC 2007, but we also use the same method for EC218 should we use it. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to see how the different nutrients, whether it's organic, more amino acids or more ammonia, affect the integrity and the viable yeast cell count during the buildup of the second fermentation, the tiraging, so acclimatizing the yeast, but also what that effect is on secondary, second alcoholic fermentation. So our pH here was 3, so nice and low. And our YAN in the base wine that we were actually building up was 67. Now, the thing is, we're only ever going to use between 20 and 30 ppm of YAN for a second fermentation. And that is primarily depends on the yeast you're using and the temperature you're doing it at. So a nice slow fermentation with at low temperatures is going to use far less YAN than one that you're going to shoot through. But I don't know anybody in Canada who would shoot through a fast second fermentation anyway at higher temperatures. So there's our alcohol at 10.4. Residual sugar we changed, obviously we removed that when we made our calculations for sugar additions. And basically what we used was no go foam at all was added. And we had the control, the DAP, there was a DAP addition and there was a Fermade O addition. Now we used fermented dough because it's an organic product, and the organic winemakers of Fizz Club are asking us about what can we use that's organic. And one of the difficulties with these organic, and I'm sure A.O. Wilson and anybody else, any other suppliers will know this, is the problem with using organic products for second fermentation is so many of them come purely from yeast. What you do is the amount of yarn that you need means that you have to add so much more of this product, which ends up with, for second fermentation, a much bigger yeast deposit, probably not that big, but certainly bigger than a normal one. And that's what we found when we were using one. We tried one called, and you'll see in a moment, but we tried one called Fermo Plus DAP free. Yeah, so that's what made us realize that the amount of organic nutrients, organic yeast products for second fermentation you need ends up being much higher. But we also looked at GoFirm on its own, and then we looked at DAP plus GoFirm, and then we looked at Fermado plus GoFirm. So we were playing around with the mixtures there to see, because there were so many different types of ways that winemakers were using these products. What was really interesting, I'm just going to try and move this. What was really interesting is when we first looked at the actual real concentrations of amino acids, which obviously we want for aromas and flavor development and complexity, compared to ammonia. Now we know DAP sends things really fast and it's like speed for yeast. But we want long and slow and gentle and flavor development and that sort of thing. So the first thing you'll see on here is that the Fermo plus DAP is really low on primary amino acids and, well, practically no ammonia whatsoever. So that's what we knew. We had to add loads of it to get to the yarn levels we needed. So we scrapped that from the experiment because it was just going to cause us problems later on. Fermade O turned out to have 66 milligrams per litre of amino acid. So that was a bit more hopeful than the other one. And a little tiny bit of ammonia coming in at 2.8. This is all our own analysis that we did in the lab. The DAP does have a bit of amino acid in, actually. It was the pure DAP as well that we bought. We still found a low level, but the ammonia in the DAP is obviously through the roof at 384, that's what it's for. The GoFirm was really high and is really high on amino acids, which was really interesting. We knew it was going to be high. We didn't think it was going to be quite that high. And the ammonia level around 15. So these are the products that we were looking at to use. Now these have implications for later on, but the Fermado and the DAP were added at stage 2. Obviously the GoFirm was only added as through the yeast buildup. Then we added more of the DAP and the Fermate at stage 3. And remember, our base wine that we're using is already at 67. We didn't fiddle with that, and we didn't add anything to that when we did the second ferment. This experiment was based on the study in Champagne by Valade. And why we did it was we wanted to show the flavor differences again to the winemakers with regards to what nutrient and how you do the yeast buildup can affect the flavor later on. So the first thing we see, and I'm just going to show you the second fermentation data rather than all the yeast buildup because there's so much data and things. So what we see first of all is the first 10 days is when the biggest difference between these nutrients happens. You see up here, and what you can see, the line at the bottom, the dotted red line, if you can see it on your screen, you can see that the control with nothing added at all, but remember it's got 67 ppm of yarn in there, has the slowest and lowest amount of viable yeast counts. However, when we get towards the end, around day 40 something, 42 I say, it ends up being the one that has the higher viable yeast cell count to help finish off the fermentation right at the end, you know, when it's starting to get more and more hostile within the wine. But what happens as well is the fermented O and the Go firm also sends it slightly bananas. And you can see there the yellow lines there. But the green dotted line, the DAP on its own, still goes slightly excited and has the highest viable yeast cell count. But as we go further along, that starts dripping off. And it has an implication again for the flavor compounds in the wine, because what's that's giving it is more banana flavors. I was trying to think of the word, the compound for it for a moment, but acetic acid on my brain at the moment. I'll have to come back to that. But you do get, which is what I think everybody knows, it's not new, but there is a synergistic effect between DAP and GoFirm shown in day 5 to 10. So DAP and GoFirm is T5. So that one at the top with the green lines between 5 and day 15, that's where you've got DAP and GoFirm together. So you've got high ammonia coupled with high amino acids. So I'm going to taste those at Fizz Club, see which ones people prefer. They're still in the cellar though at the moment. We haven't disgorged them, so we haven't got any immediate plans to, but we will be looking as well at things like the quantity of yeast, how much yeast lees there is in each one, and the ability and ease with which it can be riddled and all sorts of things like that. So from a practical point of view, as well as from a flavor point of view. Okay, what else we found with this, just to have a look, is traditionally people seem to think that, it's always said that 4 grams per litre of sugar consumed equals 1 bar pressure. And what we found with measuring these ones is that's not necessarily the case at all. Depending on the nutrient you use, it can be faster or slower. So if you look at, let's take here, fermented O, so the organic product there, it needs a lot more sugar to get to the pressure, get to 1 bar pressure than other nutrients do. Does that really matter? It's quite interesting from a scientific point of view. I don't really know whether it really matters from a wine point of view, because everything gets there in the end anyway to the same pressure. So it's still interesting to see that often, depending on the nutrient type, you can take 3 to 3.5 grams per litre up to 5 or 5.5 grams per litre to get to 1 bar pressure. But it's only going to go until the sugar stops. So, so that's that one. So now we've looked at the nutrients and the aging of pet nat. We've looked at the sour rot and the yeast and thinking about which yeast to use in our CN1 yeast. We've just looked at, got an understanding of nutrients for second fermentation. And now bringing up the rear is the last one, which is a project that belongs to the second, to a PhD student actually of ours, Hannah Charnock. She used different types of sugar to, in the dosage, all at the same rate, to have a look and see the effect on the flavor development and how the Maillard reaction compounds like caramel and savory and nutty flavors could be affected. And so we, first of all, chose which sugars to use and then sent them off for a purity test. And one of the biggest things was that this level of purity will affect, if you're trying to go for I don't know, 12 grams, and your purity product is only 80% of your product actually has pure, I don't know, glucose or pure sugar, residual sugar, then you're going to have to add more of it than you would a sucrose. And that's something that we had to take into account and have a think about as well. So the product we used on the glucose was only 90.7% glucose. The fructose was 99.4. This is where it gets really interesting. The cane and beet sugar are actually sitting at 99.9%. But, excuse me, if you open a bag of Lantix cane sugar and you open a bag of Lantix beet sugar, because it's made using with beets from, well, it's made by Lantix with beets that are grown in Alberta, they're two different smells, even though the sugar, glucose and fructose is the same amount. What you've got in there is the effect on the sugar aromas and flavors are actually coming from the product, the source, whether that be cane or beet, but also the way the sugar is made. So beet sugar is actually made using Maillard reaction in it, so the smell's different. Now, just in case you want to ever try it at home in your winery, the Canadian Alberta beet sugar is available in Ontario. There's a number on it, and if it starts with a number 22, then that's the beet sugar. And that's the only way you can tell whether you're buying cane or beet sugar from Lantix. And we added maltose in as well, because there was a reason for that. One is because it's in beer, and it accelerates the flavor and aging compounds in the beer. And so we thought, well, it's not in wine, but let's just see what it does, see if it does accelerate the Maillard reaction. That purity is only 87.8, but they do add maltose. You can add maltose to beer. I don't know about cider, but to make that hurry along. And MCR. MCR is actually the rectified grape must, but it comes from grapes, and it's really mainly sucrose. Well, glucose and fructose, and that was only 91.7%. And we used that because we knew that a couple of wineries in Ontario, in Niagara, were trialing it. So we threw that in as well because we wanted to compare these sucrose products. So let's just have a look at this. So I'm only taking 3 today. So this is the cane on the left, beet sugar in the middle, and the MCR. And we're really interested in fructose because fructose is the sugar that, when left behind in base wine or in sparkling wine, is the most reactive, and it's more active in Maillard reaction and flavor development than any other sugar in the wine, in sparkling wine. And what you can see straight away is in the cane sugar actually has higher fructose right at the beginning, and then decreases over time. Now, when it's decreasing, what it means is that that fructose is interacting, and we're losing it because it's getting involved either in sugar degradation and producing some yummy compounds, or it's involved in some reactions with amino acids to cause flavors. So that's quite interesting from the cane sugar side. When we get to beet sugar, there's less change. It doesn't seem to change quite so much. There's a little bit extra, and then it stays pretty similar. When we get to MCR, there's not much going on really at all. If you look at those error bars, that stands for the variation between bottles. So that's not really doing an awful lot with regards to fructose disappearing and producing lovely flavors. Now have a look at glucose. This is suggesting, this is just glucose, and this is suggesting that actually cane sugar has more fructose and beet sugar has less, and the beet sugar has more fructose. But we're going to have a look and go back and analyze all the sucrose at the beginning on day 0 of bottling, and check and see what's happening with the sucrose levels, because it might be that the sucrose breaks into glucose and fructose differently at different times or slowly in beet sugar. So glucose is reactive, but it's not as quick, and it's not as important for flavor development, I think is the word, in sparkling wines. And it's actually increasing here in the cane sugar, and that's probably because it's taking longer to break down from the sucrose. The beet sugar, you're still pretty stable, not a lot happening. And once again, with the MCR, that seems to have more glucose than it certainly does fructose in that. So that's not as interesting as the fructose, I think, but still of note. The other thing is the type of sugar you use actually has a big impact on the rate of browning. Now, browning in terms of sparkling wine in bottle refers not just to oxidation, but in this case, we're looking at the browning that comes from the aging reaction, from the sugar degradation. And what we see straight away on the left, on my right, your left, is that the MCR made from grape sugar is the one that starts browning and has higher levels of browning in it. And then maltose, which we kind of expected with regards to the beer, we knew that would cause the reaction faster. And then cane and beet sugar, bit similar. Fructose a little bit higher, and then the control and the glucose are pretty similar. Not too much difference on the browning there. So this is after 18 months. Now, 18 months post-disgorging is actually quite a long time, but it still gives you an indication of what's happening when your wine goes out to market, and not everybody's going to buy a wine straight away, sparkling wine straight away, and not everyone's going to drink it straight away. So it's still taking on board the development post-disgorging versus a very different aging on primary yeast lees in bottles. So the two different types of aging going on. So this brings me to my final slide, really, is just to reiterate that every stage of production, every ingredient, everything you add, the type of nutrients you add, how much you add of that. You don't want loads of yan left over if there's a whole bunch of ammonia left, or amino acids actually. The type of sugar you can use, and we haven't even touched on things like liquid sugar or anything else. Every single thing impacts and changes the chemistry and the flavor chemistry of the wine and the aging potential and ability of it. So the aging of base wines in bottle or fermentation vessels, the type of yeast and the nutrient you're using, the yan and nitrogen additions, yan is nitrogen, but nutrient additions, I should say. Second, fermentation, the same thing, yeast and nutrients, especially when now you add in aging and what happens during aging, and the sugar type and the amount of sugar that you use. So I tried to get a lot in a short space of time there. So I just want to say that our research is funded on these three projects by NSERC, CGCN and OGWRI. And we are really hoping that we can have Fizz Club going so the winemakers can taste all these again. And some references should you be interested. So there we go. That was quite quick, and I forgot to breathe in places. So.
Oh. Well, thank you, Belinda. So I'm going to direct my questions to the audience. Do you have any questions, anyone, about Belinda's presentation? About any questions about sparkling wines?
Fabulous.
That was really, yeah. It was so like. I mean, I just have a quick comment for myself is like looking at your presentation, it's just, it's so hard to be able to, as you said, and summarize really well at the end is there are so many, it's such a complex problem, and you're really trying to divide, like, it's like divide and conquer, because you're addressing yans and sugars, and I mean all those little I mean, they're not little molecules, but all the components of a juice, which is a complex mixture, and trying to pinpoint which one of the components you can exploit to get to develop flavor for us.
I think the thing is, though, by understanding, like each one of those things I showed you is a different project. So when the studies are finished and the paper's published, then it gives you an understanding of what's happening at each stage. And then depending on what sort of thing you want to, you might not want to accelerate aging. You might not want banana flavors in your wine. I know I don't. So you can, once you have that knowledge and ability, how you use it is up to you. But at least you know that if you are using a nutrient product, what's it going to bring to the flavor and aging ability? What's this sugar going to do if I add this much? So I think it's, rather than sort of thinking of it as a one big thing, I think breaking it down step by step is really useful, knowing each one's going to have an effect in the long run. Yeah.
Yes. So does it like if you have problems, I guess, in your winemaking, it probably helps, right? But once you've seen a problem, then you can trigger, I mean, like find a solution for that, because you know how to address it, like separately, right?
Yeah. What people do with this information is entirely up to them. The thing that works really, really well at Fizz Club is winemakers tasting each different one. Because it might, you take a combination of one particular nutrient with one particular sugar, and that's what you want to go and trial in your winery, and it works for you. And that's also the fun of it, is once you taste the effect, which is the thing that has the biggest effect of Fizz Club, then yeah. So
yeah, well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes. Anybody has a question for Belinda?
We should just make more sparkling wine.
Yeah, I mean
and sparkling cider, and
our area is would be it's perfectly suitable for our climate, right? Like and I mean we have Chardonnay and Pinot Noirs, and so that's and other like the cider is another component, definitely, yes. Okay, so thank you, Belinda. Thank you, everyone, for attending. So we'll take a little break and we'll reconvene for the last session of the afternoon and of the event. And so I'll see you in a bit. You can head to the trade show part and say hi to our exhibitors. And thank you.
Last session at 2:20.
Yes, 2:20. So you have quite a bit of time. Stretch your legs.